Ahead now, Nigeria's foreign-trained graduates may have to face more scrutiny from the National Universities Commission and the National Youth Service Corps. This is because the two agencies are putting measures in place to block graduates whose certificates are questionable from partaking in the compulsory one-year national service. The National Universities Commission says it will continue to ensure the credibility of certificates being issued by Nigerian universities and block the increasing number of fake foreign-trained graduates coming into the country. Joining me now is Public and Policy Affairs Analyst Seun Awugbinle. It's nice to have you join me right now.
Pleasure.
Now, we have seen, especially from within here in Lagos where we interact with people, there are lots of people who have the craze of going abroad just to study, sometimes just to neighboring countries. And if you go to neighboring countries and you speak with a lot of them, they look up to Nigeria, hoping and praying one day that they can school in Nigeria. What is that thing about Nigerians going abroad to study?
Well, the truth is that we have a tertiary education crisis in Nigeria. I tell you for a fact that between 2010 and 2015, 26% of about 10 million people, of estimated 10 million people who applied to study in Nigeria couldn't get, only got admitted. In 2019 alone, 1.8 million people registered to write JAMB. So over the last 5 years, what you have is that an average of 2 million people, write JAMB to get into Nigerian tertiary education, tertiary institutions. Now, on an average, about 1.1 million pass JAMB every year. But the truth is that what you have as Nigeria's capacity today is just about 750,000, 500,000 across the universities, the polytechnics, and the colleges of education, while the innovation and vocational enterprises have about 250,000 capacity. So the point is that about 500,000, Nigerians who are willing and are qualified to actually study in Nigeria's tertiary institutions
don't have the opportunity.
Are denied admission on a yearly basis. About 500,000. That's whooping. And don't also forget that, even before then, you talk about 11 on an annual basis. We have about 11 million enrollments into Nigeria's primary school. 50% of that 11 million only 50% move into secondary school, and then eventually you have about 2 million people who are jostling for 750,000 capacity. For about 750,000 capacity. Now I break it down for you. University of Ilorin, for example, is the most applied to university in Nigeria. It has, this year, JAMB said about 806,000 people applied to get into the University of Ilorin. However, the university only has an average capacity of just about 10,000. So you look at it, 6,000,
exactly.
Just 10,000, domestic capacity. There's a fundamental problem with domestic capacity.
All right, now, as it is now, the move by the Universities Commission and the NYSC, how much of a game changer would that be when it comes to scrutinizing some of these certificates brought from abroad?
No, it is actually very important, the point that we have actually got into in this country, because what you have is that there's actually this desperation, and there's also this, this fad about people wanting to go out of the country to study. I mean, I was reading...
And they don't mind just crossing the border, just into the next country.
I'm telling you, I mean, it is even that's gotten that, that's gotten extremely bad, that, most of the countries down there, where Nigerians go to study are on the rise. Most importantly, you begin to talk about countries like Benin Republic, you talk about Ghana, you talk about Cameroon, you talk about Togo. I mean, it puts a dent on our image, when we say we are Africa's giant, and in fact, we lack the domestic capacity to actually take care of, the rising educational challenges.
All right, we have to leave it here now. Seun Awugbinle, thank you so much for coming on the program.
A pleasure.
Thank you. Moving ahead now, Nigeria's foreign-trained graduates may have to face more scrutiny from the National Universities Commission and the National Youth Service Corps. The two agencies are putting measures in place to block graduates whose certificates are questionable from partaking in the compulsory one-year national service. The National Universities Commission says it will continue to ensure the credibility of certificates being issued by Nigerian universities and block the increasing number of fake foreign-trained graduates coming into the country. Joining me now is Public Affairs Analyst Seun Awugbinle. Hi, Seun. Talking about the quality of education first, even before we get to that, let's even talk about how the system would curb fake graduates in and out of the country.
It's actually important, and I think that it is actually the right step in the right direction, that we must continue to ascertain the level of integrity of the certificates of graduates. So it is, I think it is the right step in the right direction.
Right.
However, I would also like to reiterate that I think NYSC already has a system that puts some of these things in check, because people go to as far back as far as India, and then they bring those certificates to Nigeria and wanting to be mobilized. So NYSC already has a system in check, but I think now it is also about trying to improve those systems and processes.
Because of the flaws.
Exactly. We have more people who go outside the country to study. So they need to continue to expand, their technologies and expand their procedures, expand their processes, so that the integrity of the certificates will be ascertained.
Well, another worry for authorities here in Nigeria is this influx we are seeing now of online universities. That's also a worry for them, especially now they're saying we cannot ascertain some of these online universities and the degrees they issue out to Nigerians who utilize the system. I mean, for you, is this a major worry as well?
Yeah, it is. You note that Nigeria presently actually lacks the domestic capacity.
Right.
And then one of the things that we need to do to actually enhance our domestic capacity in Nigeria would have been to, for a long time now, would have been to adopt an open distance delivery system learning, where people don't have to go to the conventional classrooms, even in Nigeria. Noting that we actually lack capacity when it comes to domestic, domestic capacity. We lack the capacity for to cover our domestic demand. What we could have done to actually mitigate our rising demand is to ensure that we implement an open distance learning delivery policy, system. Right. However, and that's what you have actually seen with the NOW system, the National Open University of Nigeria. So we actually need more of those to come on board, so that Nigerians will not be forced to actually go out of the country to get educated, because we have a rise in the demand is actually on the rise. Don't forget that Nigerians between the ages 0 and 24, about 62% of our population at the moment, and then our population is still rising at about 2.6%. So the demand for tertiary education is rising, and there's a current crisis in our hands, because most of those who want to get access to the education are actually they are denied, they are unable to get access to education. So Nigerians are actually looking for every way how to ensure that they get educated. However,
but eventually, even in a perfect system, people will still have the right and should be given the freedom to pursue education and whatever opportunities that they want with outside the country, especially. So shouldn't the advocacy now for authorities now be, let's make quality of education fantastic at all levels in the country? I mean, we just saw what happened in the case of the Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University in Bauchi yesterday, how flood claimed the lives of at least 4 students. Can't we just, focus our attention on, upping the ante, so to speak, in our schools all over the country?
You also don't forget that there are quite a lot of challenges that are currently definitely the tertiary education system that we have today. Don't forget that there's always the issue of industrial action. There's always the issue of a stable academic calendar, and then don't also forget that most Nigerian universities actually lack. As a matter of fact, there are just about 863 Nigerian universities. Most of Nigerian universities actually lack the capacity to also carry out research and ensure quality learning. So what we have today is that the capacity in terms of even the infrastructures are actually not there to support the rising demand. And then just last year in 2018, the executive secretary of the NUC, Abdurrashid Abubakar, was saying that Nigeria needs to recruit an average of 10,000 lecturers for the next 5 years, to make up for about 72,000. Which is still a shortfall.
We still don't have it.
It's still going to be a shortfall from the expected 88,000 lecturers in Nigeria. So, coupled with the fact that every of the time, there's always a sudden issue that the government has to, to sort out with ASU. There's always SANU also coming out. There's NASU. So all of these things have actually bedeviled the educational sector in Nigeria. And then Nigerian government needs to pay more attention, because education is quite fundamental.
Sure, indeed, the struggle continues. We thank you so much for the points you've made on the program this morning. Okay.